Welcome to Watchtower History.
This is the end.
Why, Harry? Doesn't make sense to me. What does Hitler have in mind? You think he's trying to get world opinion on his side by attacking communism?
That's what he thinks. Winston will set him straight in one big hurry.
I think Hitler has just made his first big mistake.
A cowardly and murderous act by the international Jewish conspiracy. The
Rutherford.
gunman is identified as Herschel Greenspan, a Polish Jew who shot down Herr von Rath in cold blood with no provocation. Already, spontaneous demonstrations against Jews are reported. The German people will rise in their anger to avenge
Rudy, turn it off.
the attempt
No, I
on
want to hear
Rath's
it.
life. Herr von Rath was shot outside the embassy. Doctors say he is in critical condition.
Good for you,
We
Greenspan.
will
You should
keep
have
you
killed him.
informed of
Rudy,
any further
turn it
developments
off.
as soon as
Rudy,
we
do as
have
your mother
them.
says.
And now,
It's all right. It's all right. I'm respected in this neighborhood.
Cowards.
The Reichstag building, the seat of the German parliament, burns. The Nazis immediately blame the communists, and Hitler pressures President von Hindenburg to issue an emergency decree. The enabling act soon follows. Hitler, now with dictatorial powers, suspends human rights. Anyone could be arrested and imprisoned without trial. The Nazis now have a weapon to silence their enemies.
I have good news for you. There are rumors go around that we like to Umsiedlung, resettle you. I promise you that now and in the future, nothing else is planned. Yeah? For this reason, we put information posters on the wall to show you our goodwill. You should vote, one of you who be allowed it, to go in town daily and bring 3 kilos Kartoffel, potato, yeah, and 1 loaf of bread for each of your workers. So, why should we do something else like this if we would resettle you? You can make good business out of the things you don't eat. Isn't that something where your Jews are good in? Make money?
Halte die Priester gefangen.
Das internationale Judentum kontrolliert die Weltpresse, die Weltbanken, die Vereinigten Staaten, das Vereinigte Königreich und die Sowjetunion. Diese Mächte finanzieren sogenannte Widerstandsgruppen überall in Europa und Lyon ist ihre Hauptstadt.
Bitte mit der offiziellen Version. Ich will, dass unser Kind niemals hören muss, dass ihr Vater einen Priester verletzt hat.
Dein Ehemann ist die oberste Instanz in Gesamt-Südfrankreich.
Im ganzen Dritten Reich gibt es
keinen anderen Offizier seines Alters, der mehr Truppen befehligt. Ich bin nicht so weit gekommen, weil ich nett zu unseren Feinden war.
Wenn du mich und unser Kind bei dir haben möchtest, dann will ich verstehen können, was du hier tust.
Alles, was ich tue, ist für uns, für unsere Zukunft und die Zukunft unseres Kindes. Je schneller wir die Widerstandsgruppen zerschlagen.
Ich will dir aber vertrauen können.
This speech from 1933 shows how Hitler's own hatred connected with the audience.
Der Völkerstreit oder Hass untereinander, wird gepflegt von ganz bestimmten Interessenten. Es ist eine kleine, wurzellose, internationale Clique, die die Völker gegeneinander hetzt, die nicht will, dass sie zur Ruhe kommen. Es sind das die Menschen, die überall und nirgends zu Hause sind. die nirgends einen Boden haben, auf dem sie gewachsen sind, sondern die heute in Berlin leben, morgen genauso gut in Brüssel sein können, übermorgen in Paris und dann wieder in Prag oder in Wien oder in London und die sich überall zu Hause fühlen. Es sind die einzigen, die wirklich als internationale Elemente anzusprechen sind, weil sie überall ihre Geschäfte betätigen können.
Das nationalsozialistische Deutschland keine Feindschaft mit anderen Völkern will. Ich will heute wieder ein Prophet sein. Wenn es dem internationalen Finanzjudentum in und außerhalb Europas gelingen sollte, die Völker noch einmal in einen Weltkrieg zu stürzen, dann wird das Ergebnis nicht die Bolschewisierung der Erde und damit der Sieg des Judentums sein, sondern die Vernichtung der jüdischen Rasse in Europa.
The Nazis falsely branded Jehovah's Witnesses as communists, menaces to the state, conspirators with the Jews to take over the world. By 1933, the stage was set for battle.
From the start, the Nazis viewed them with suspicion as internationalists with American ties and as philo-Semitic, pro-Jewish, due to their theological beliefs and emphasis on Old Testament teachings.
The proclamation of the kingdom message stirs up the hatred of the religionists against Jehovah's servants, and those religionists, led by the hierarchy, urges upon all the nations the necessity of gathering together in a conspiracy against Jehovah's Witnesses to stop their work by any means possible.
Jehovah's Witnesses were affected almost immediately, since their beliefs did not allow them to render unconditional obedience to any state. They were maligned and assaulted ostensibly as internationalists, philo-Semitic or pro-Jewish, and also as Americans, because the founding corporation of the Jehovah's Witnesses was in the United States.
In 1933, shortly after Hitler's regime had assumed power, the German branch of the International Bible Students Association had already been declared part of a Bolshevist Jewish world conspiracy and had been prohibited.
In 1943, after 10 years of semi-tolerance, the Gestapo struck hard at the Jehovah's Witnesses. Hermie and her family, along with other Jehovah's Witnesses, were taken into custody. After spending a year in detention awaiting trial under extremely brutal conditions, their sentences were handed down. Hermie's mother received 3 years in prison. Horst, Hermie's boyfriend, was sentenced to death. Hermie, considered a juvenile, received no sentence, but as she left the courthouse, she was unexpectedly taken into custody again by the Gestapo and eventually sent to Stutthof.
Dann kam schon die SS.
In Stutthof, I was at the mercy of the SS. Things became quite difficult for me. No curse word was too offensive, too cruel to hurl at me. They said, "It's all true. You are everything we've called you." Yes, I would reply. In your eyes, I'm all those things. And I'm also a rabble-rouser, a traitor, and a blasphemer. They would say, "No, we didn't say that." That's true, I said. But that's what was said to God's innocent son. And he responded, "A servant is not greater than his master. If they persecute me, they'll persecute you." That left them so speechless and confused that they left me alone for a while.
The Hitler government denounces, persecutes, and expels from that land Israelites or the natural descendants of Abraham, called Jews, confiscates their property, and denounces Jehovah God and his word. The Hitler government has undertaken to say that only its state church and the Roman Catholic organization shall freely practice their religion in Germany, and that all others in that land must comply with their fixed rules or else be severely punished. For years in Germany, there have been many earnest Christian people known as Bible students or Jehovah's Witnesses. And now in these times of great world distress, those faithful Christian people are wickedly persecuted, arrested, driven through the streets under the lash of whips, thrown into prison, and some of them killed.
The Jews, led by their philosophical rabbis, and that this united religious multitude, supported by the professional politicians and financial giants, will present such an inspiring spectacle before the throne of Almighty God that even He will hear and grant their petitions, that they may be relieved of their burdens and given more ease and comfort. The question is, will Jehovah God hear and grant the prayers of such an unholy alliance? According to the words of the Scriptures, God answers no. All Jewish rabbis entirely reject Jesus Christ as the Redeemer of man. The slogan of the World War was, "We will make the world safe for democracy." That false slogan originated with the devil for the very purpose of deceiving the people and causing them to trust men, while those men selfishly built up totalitarian ruling power and robbed the people of their liberty. Shortly after the World War, the totalitarians began to organize and immediately set about to destroy all democracies, and particularly to oppose the theocratic government under Christ. God foretold of that conspiracy through His prophet, and who speaks these words, as recorded in the 83rd Psalm, quote, "For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they hate thee, and they have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. They have consulted together with one consent, they're confederate against thee." And all the physical facts today strongly prove that this prophecy is being carried into effect all over the United States and in fact all over the world. Who has taken the lead in this conspiracy? The Roman Catholic hierarchy of authority operating from Vatican City. That institution has induced the political and commercial elements to believe that Jehovah's Witnesses are subversive and enemies of all governments and must be destroyed. The religionists and totalitarians have not only conspired against the theocracy and its servants, but have at the present time committed many overt acts against God's servants. How may we know when Armageddon is about to begin? The Scriptures make it clear that the Lord will give His people the sign. What is the sign? The Scriptures answer, quote, "When they shall say peace and safety." That means that persecution and opposition must and will continue until the hierarchy and allies think that they have put to complete silence all those who are engaged in God's witness work. They will say, according to another rendering of this text, "All is well and all is safe." That will be the occasion for a celebration amongst them, because they will conclude that they have accomplished that which they unlawfully conspired to accomplish. They will conclude that now the arbitrary, totalitarian rule is upon the world, that they are a part of it, and they will say, "We're in control and are safe and free from all disturbance." Why such fanatical persecution? That question was asked me by a New York paper, and I answered it, and they failed to publish it. I answer now. The persecution, it is for the purpose of carrying out the conspiracy on the part of the hierarchy and its allies to put to silence all persons who advocate the theocratic government. Such wrongful persecution will continue until the hierarchy and allies believe that they have put down all persons forever who favor God and His kingdom under Christ. When they conclude that they have silenced all these witnesses, then those religious leaders in particular will say, "We are at peace and we are safe." The religionists could not well proclaim peace and safety unless they had the cooperation of the political and other official elements of the earth.
The September 26, 1934 Golden Age had something interesting to say about vindication. When we were researching the book Vindication, this popped up and we thought it odd at first. Didn't quite make sense. So we tried to pull at the threads to see where it would take us. Very interesting. So in the Golden Age, it's talking about Henry Ford. And it says, Henry ought to get Judge Rutherford's work, Vindication, and see the wonderful things that are going to happen. It would surely interest him if he got started to read it once. And so the question is, And the question that came to my mind when I saw that, especially in the research that we've been doing in the Vindication book, is why did they want Henry Ford to read Vindication?
And not only that, okay, did the person who wrote the Golden Age article, was it Rutherford himself making that statement if he wrote it? If he had somebody else write it, one, he approved everything that wrote and went in it. Whoever wrote it, what were they thinking?
Mm-hmm. Well, we will see more statements like that in other Watchtower publications that weren't edited, by Rutherford or written by Rutherford. So we're going to get into some of those similar type of statements by other Watchtower writers, and see that there's a constant and continual theme going on. But what's the story here about Henry Ford and why Henry Ford? In the September 1921 Moody Bible Institute Monthly, in this article, Moody is quoting from a magazine called The Searchlight, which is described as a quarterly magazine in the defense of the faith, edited by James P. Welliver of Mildred, Minnesota. There's a statement made about the Jewish protocols. It says, in a recent issue, we saw a most intelligent article on the subject of this editorial note. It takes issue with those who charge anti-Semitism on the Dearborn Independent and states the facts in the case succinctly and with unusual clearness, adding that if the apostate Jews of Christendom are innocent, discussion will only tend to exhibit that fact, and if they are guilty, then there is a peril existing that the world should know about. A clear distinction is drawn between such apostate Jews and the Orthodox Jews in whom the Messianic hope still lives, and to whom a free Palestine is an impelling power. Henry Ford bought a newspaper and was publishing his ideas in it. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But the Moody Bible Institute Christians here are separating the apostate Jews, the regular Jews that they think Henry Ford's going after, and then those religious Jews who have the Messianic hope. So they're making a distinction between the two. Now, Rutherford in the Watchtower doesn't make a distinction at all, and he groups them all in together. So there's a magazine called The Restitution. And this was a monthly paper representing the Church of God, another denomination. And they have an article in the May 1922 issue, The Troubled State of the World. Will it get better or worse? And the article says that this suggests the Jew's position in politics and just what and how he is doing unconsciously, of course, in fulfilling prophecy. They are returning to Palestine at the rate of about 6,000 a year and taking the wealth of the world with them. While those yet remaining in this country are powerful, they are of an unpolluted stock. And science tells us that there is less mental deficiency among them than in any one race, and little moralization by alcoholism, and in contrast, are of a high intelligence and a superior morale. The greatest musicians at all times have claimed in their numbers many Jews: Mendelssohn, Mozart, Paderewski. The influential scientists of this age are Jews, and we must all conclude that our powerful financiers are Jews. Does this not cause unrest?
Now let me add a thought in here. What a lot of American people, and I say American, specifically American people, don't understand that during this period of time, eugenics was a big thing. I think I said this in another discussion, but eugenics was big. Singling out genes, making a superior race. Hitler was doing that. Hitler took it to an extreme level. The United States and other countries were doing it more at a scientific, let's try and weed out birth defects, weed out alcoholism, drug addicts. It's genetics. We got to weed this out. So this article, for its time, was well received by a lot of people. It was a common theme going on back then. In fact, they even made a movie. I think Dana Carvey was in it, where he was the son of the Kellogg heir, the Kellogg cereal financier guy, where
they were creating all fitness, all breed, eat this cereal. It was all eugenics back then. So that's where this, and Henry Ford obviously took a part in it as this is going on. So this was a common thing back in that day.
And the point of bringing these articles in is Watchtower wasn't the only one that was guilty of that. There were a lot of denominations that were doing that. Moody Bible Institute here in Chicago is a very old and well-respected Christian college. They have a chain of radio stations across the United States.
But to be noted,
they had some of these same things in their older magazines.
Yeah, and Watchtower that's the key word. Watchtower was taking part in it.
Yeah, it was a zeitgeist of the time period. Yeah. All right, so this statement in the magazine continues. It says, "We need only note the experience that Henry Ford had with Jewish bankers a couple of years ago. He, a power in the financial world, was unable to cope with them. Thus, with wealth of wisdom and of gold, the Jews are re-inhabiting their native land. And is this making for trouble? Indeed, for in Ezekiel 38, we read that the closing wars are to be promoted by finance. I will go up to them that are at rest and dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil and to take a prey, and to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited." And so the suggestion here is that the Jews going back to their homeland would be fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 because the Jews are just in it for money. Again, a very anti-Semitic statement from a so-called Christian organization, a Christian denomination.
But fortunately, Rutherford changed the meaning of Ezekiel 38, so it doesn't really apply to some. But even, let's just say, every bank was completely under control of Jewish people. Let's just even say that. I'm not saying it is, but let's just say it is. Here's Henry Ford, a big company who wants people to borrow money to buy his cars. Okay, he's going to have a problem with the banks no matter who's controlling it, whether it be white Anglo-Saxon males or whoever is coming in making a position between him and selling a car. So that's a little perspective that I'd like to add into that right there.
All right, so the Golden Age, about Henry Ford and the banks. September 28th, 1932 issue. Henry Ford thinks banks useless. And remember, they're in the middle of the Great Depression at this point as well, right? So Henry Ford, in the quote here below, says, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." And so the Golden Age article says, Henry Ford thinks that a community that has been favored with a bank failure has proven very well that it can get along without banks. The bank is supposed to be a safe place to deposit money. If it is not that, it injures those whom it is supposed to serve. One thing is sure, many American communities are now finding out what it is like not to have any bank in their midst, and they still go on somehow. And so Watchtower is following Henry Ford and his ideas during this period. Now, what were Henry Ford's ideas? Let's look a little bit at that.